I shouldn't be alive to tell this, but here I am, and what I'm about to share will never leave your mind. My name is Daniel Harris, and this is the true nightmare that ruined my life forever. I never believed in ghosts, demons, or anything supernatural. I used to laugh at scary movies, roll my eyes at horror stories, and tell people they were crazy for believing in the paranormal. But everything changed the night I moved into that old apartment in Cleveland, Ohio. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't big, but it was cheap, and at that point in my life that was all I cared about. The landlord never told me its history, and I never asked. If I had known what happened there, I would have burned my savings and lived in my car instead. The first week felt normal. I set up my things, worked my night shifts, and came back to sleep during the day. But after the 7th night, I began hearing things. It started small, like footsteps in the hallway when I knew no one else was there. At first, I thought it was the neighbors. But then I realized, I didn't have neighbors. The other apartments on my floor were empty, the entire building half abandoned. Still, I tried to ignore it. You don't just move into a new place and expect it to be haunted, right? Then came the whispers. I'd be lying in bed around 3 a.m., trying to sleep, when I'd hear faint voices near my ear. They weren't clear words, more like broken murmurs, but they were close, so close that I could feel a chill on my skin as if someone was breathing over me. One night, I snapped and yelled, "Who's there?" But all I got back was silence. Silence so heavy that my ears rang. Things escalated quickly after that. My belongings started moving. I'd leave my keys on the table, and when I came back, they'd be on the floor by the door. I'd hang my coat, and minutes later, it would be spread across the couch. Once, I came home to find all the kitchen cabinets wide open. Every single one. It looked like someone had been frantically searching for something, but nothing was missing. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was just stressed from work, maybe I forgot things. But deep down, I knew, I wasn't alone. The breaking point came on a night I'll never forget. I had just come home from work around 2:30 a.m. I dropped on the couch, exhausted, when I heard it. A faint knock at my bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. But here's the thing, I live alone. I froze, staring at the dark hallway that led to my room. I wanted to believe it was in my head, but then the door creaked open. Just a sliver, just enough to see the pitch-black gap inside. My heart was pounding. I whispered to myself, "Don't move. Don't move." But then something moved for me. My TV turned on by itself, static filling the screen. I swear, in the flicker of that static, I saw a tall shadow standing in my bedroom doorway. Taller than any man I've ever seen, its head almost brushing the ceiling. It didn't step out, it just stood there, watching me that I couldn't breathe. My chest locked, my vision blurred, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. Then, out of nowhere, the voice came. Low, guttural, and unmistakable. It said my name. Daniel. The sound was like nails dragging against my spine. I don't remember what happened after that, but when I woke up, it was morning, and I was lying on the living room floor. The door to my bedroom was shut tight, as if nothing had ever happened. That I tried to leave the apartment that day, but the moment I touched the doorknob, every light in the place went out. I heard footsteps running behind me, heavy and fast, like something sprinting straight toward me. I panicked, yanked the door open, and stumbled into the hallway. But the hallway wasn't the same. The lights were flickering, and the air smelled like rot. Every door along the hall was wide open, and in each doorway, I saw figures. Not solid, not human. Just outlines of people, all facing me, all watching. Their faces were blurred shadows, but their eyes, God, their eyes glowed red. That I bolted down the stairs and out into the street. I didn't care that I left everything behind, my clothes, my furniture, my money. None of it mattered. I ran until my legs gave out. I never went back. I never even asked for my deposit. That place still stands today, and maybe someone else is living there right now. Maybe someone else is hearing the knocks, the whispers, the voices calling their name that I wish I could say it ended there, but it didn't. Even now, years later, I still wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of faint knocking. Sometimes I hear my name whispered in the dark. And sometimes, when the TV flickers for no reason, I see it, that same shadow figure, taller than the ceiling, just standing in the corner of my room. It's watching. It's always watching. And the worst part? Every time I blink, it feels closer. So if you ever find yourself in Cleveland, and you come across a cheap apartment in a half-abandoned building, don't take it. Don't even look at it. Because I swear, something lives there. Something that doesn't want you to leave alive. And if you think I'm lying, remember this, it's still watching me, and maybe, now that you've heard my story, it's watching you too. The morning after the storm was deceptively calm. A thin layer of mist hung low over Hollow Creek Road, and the air carried that damp, heavy scent of wet earth and rotting leaves. From the upstairs bedroom, Daniel watched the fog curl around the skeletal trees beyond the yard. It reminded him of something alive, something breathing. Emily had already gone downstairs to make coffee. He could hear the distant clinking of mugs, the rhythmic sound of the kettle. Everything seemed normal, until he noticed the footprints. They weren't his. On the outside of the bedroom window, faint smears trailed across the glass, as though someone had pressed their fingers there during the night. The marks were pale, almost invisible unless the light hit them just right. His skin prickled as he leaned closer. They were child-sized. When Daniel came downstairs, Emily was sitting at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched, her eyes fixed on something in her lap. "You're up early," he said, trying to sound casual. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "I didn't sleep much." She slid something across the table toward him, an envelope, yellowed and curling at the edges. It looked as though it had been buried somewhere damp. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "It was inside the front door when I came down." No knock. No sound. Just, there. Daniel turned it over. No return address. No stamp. Just his name in careful, looping handwriting. He broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of lined paper. The writing was in the same hand. "You shouldn't have come here." The rest of the page was blank. They argued for the next hour, about whether it was some sick prank, about the footprints Daniel claimed to see, about whether they should call the police. "Daniel," Emily said finally, lowering her voice as if the house itself could hear, "do you remember that man in town? The one at the diner who kept staring at us?" He did. A thin man with a gray beard and eyes like river stones. He'd sat in the corner booth, not touching his plate, just watching them. "What about him?" Daniel asked. Emily hesitated. "He followed me outside when I went to the car. Said, 'This place doesn't let people leave.'" Daniel stared at her. "Why didn't you tell me that before?" "Because I thought he was drunk or crazy," she said. "But now," she gestured toward the envelope. "What if he wasn't?" The rest of the day passed uneasily. Daniel tried to focus on unpacking, but every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the wind against the windows, set him on edge. Around noon, he found himself in the basement again, though he couldn't have said why. The smell was stronger this time, not just damp, but something sharper, almost metallic. The single bulb swayed slightly as if a draft had passed through, though there were no open windows. That he noticed something he hadn't before, a faint outline on the far wall. A square, about the size of a small door, concealed beneath a thin layer of plaster. The edges were uneven, as though someone had tried to seal it up in a hurry. He ran his fingers along the outline. The plaster was brittle, flaking away at the slightest touch. Behind it, something waited. That night, Daniel dreamed of water. He was standing in the middle of Hollow Creek, though the current was far stronger than it should have been, pulling at his legs like invisible hands. The fog was so thick he could barely see the banks. Something moved beneath the surface. A pale shape, small and quick, darting just out of sight. Then another. He caught a glimpse of a child's face just under the water, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Dozens of hands reached up toward him, grasping at his ankles. He woke with a shout, drenched in sweat. The room was dark, except for the faintest movement at the foot of the bed. Emily was asleep beside him. The shape was small, no taller than a child, and it didn't move like a person. It was swaying, as though its limbs were too long, its joints bending wrong. For a moment, he thought it was a trick of the dark, until it tilted its head and he saw two faint, wet handprints glowing on its chest, and then it was gone. The next morning, Daniel didn't tell Emily what he'd seen. He just said he'd had a nightmare. But the decision gnawed at him. He didn't know if he was protecting her, or himself. Instead, he focused on the basement. By late afternoon, he'd fetched a hammer and chisel from the garage and begun chipping at the plaster on the far wall. Each strike sent echoes through the house. By the time he'd cleared a hand-sized hole, he could see wood beneath, the surface of an old door. The wood was swollen and dark, as though it had been wet for years. The smell hit him then, rot, but mixed with something else, something like stagnant pond water. He reached in to pull away more plaster, and his fingers brushed against something soft. It was fabric. He tugged, and a small, sodden bundle slid through the gap and fell to the floor with a wet sound. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a child's dress. Pale blue, with tiny embroidered flowers along the hem. The fabric was stiff with age and stained with something brownish black. He didn't hear Emily come down the stairs until she spoke. "What is that?" He turned, hiding the bundle instinctively. "It's nothing. Just old junk." She gave him a look that told him she didn't believe him. "Daniel, please. Don't keep things from me," he almost told her. Almost. But something about the weight of the dress in his hands, the way it seemed to radiate cold, made the words stick in his throat. That evening, as they sat in the living room pretending to watch TV, there was a knock at the door. Daniel answered it, half expecting the bearded man from the diner, but it wasn't him. It was a young girl, maybe 11 or 12, with wet hair plastered to her cheeks. Her dress was pale blue. She looked up at him with eyes the color of Hollow Creek's water. "Can I come in?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, almost mechanical. Daniel's hand tightened on the doorframe. "Where are your parents?" She tilted her head slightly, as if she didn't understand the question. "They're waiting. By the creek." Before he could answer, Emily appeared behind him. "Oh my God, are you lost? Come inside, you must be freezing." Daniel tried to stop her, but the girl had already stepped over the threshold. The rest of the night was a blur. Emily made the girl tea and tried to get her to talk, but the child only sat at the table, staring at nothing. Drops of water slid down her arms and pooled on the floor, but she never shivered. Around midnight, Emily went to find blankets. When she returned, the chair was empty. The front door was wide open. The only trace of the girl was a trail of wet footprints leading away from the house, toward the trees, and the sound of rushing water. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in the living room until dawn, staring at the basement door. By morning, he'd made a decision. He was going to break through the hidden door completely. Whatever was behind it, he had to know. The plaster came away quickly now, revealing more of the rotting wood. He pried at the boards with the hammer until the first one snapped. Cold air spilled out, air that smelled like the bottom of a swamp. Beyond was darkness. He shone a flashlight inside and saw narrow wooden steps leading down into black water. The surface was perfectly still, like a mirror. Something broke that stillness. A ripple, and then, from somewhere far below, the sound of a child's laughter. Daniel staggered back, heart pounding. When he looked again, the water was gone. The steps led down into nothing but shadow, but he knew what he'd heard, and in the silence that followed, the house seemed to lean closer around him, as though it, too, were waiting for him to take the next step. My name is Daniel Carter, I'm from Ohio, and what I'm about to share with you still makes my skin crawl even years later. I swear to you this is real, and sometimes when I close my eyes at night, I can still hear it breathing. I never believed in ghosts, demons, or anything paranormal. I used to laugh at people who said their houses were haunted. But after what happened to me in 2016, I will never laugh again. It started when I moved into a small rental house just outside of town. It wasn't much, just an old one-story place with wooden floors that creaked under every step. The rent was cheap, and as a single guy working late shifts, I didn't really care if the house was old or a little run down. The first night I slept there, I noticed how quiet it was. Too quiet. No cars passing, no neighbors talking outside, just silence so heavy it pressed against my ears. I remember lying in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep, when I heard it, a faint whisper. At first, I thought it was just the wind slipping through the cracks in the walls. But then I realized it wasn't outside. It was inside the room with me. I sat up quickly, my heart racing, but the room was empty. Just shadows stretching long across the floor. I told myself I was imagining things and finally managed to sleep. The next day was normal, but that night, it came back. I woke up at around 3 a.m. to the sound of something scratching at my bedroom door. Not a small scratch like a mouse or a bug, it was heavy, like long fingernails dragging slowly across wood. I froze, staring at the door, waiting for it to open, but it never did. The scratching just stopped. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. By the third night, things escalated. I had just turned off the lights and laid in bed when I felt it. The mattress dipped slightly, like someone had sat down at the edge. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't move, I didn't even blink, I just stared into the dark. And then I felt it, something slowly crawling up the bed toward me. The weight pressing closer, closer, until I could feel the warmth of breath on my face. My shaking hand fumbled for the lamp, and when the light came on, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. But the blanket was still indented, like someone had been lying there just seconds ago. I thought about leaving, breaking the lease, and running back to my old apartment. But a part of me wanted to believe I was just tired, stressed, or maybe even dreaming. So I stayed. That was the worst mistake of my life. One night, after a late shift, I walked into the living room and froze. The furniture had moved. The old armchair that usually sat in the corner was now facing the hallway. It was like someone had dragged it there just to watch me walk in. My heart pounded as I turned every light on in the house, searching every room, but I was alone. Or at least, I thought I was. That night, I dreamed, or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was lying in bed when I saw a tall, shadowy figure standing in the corner. Its body was long and twisted, its arms reaching down almost to the floor. It didn't move, it didn't speak, it just stood there, watching me. When I jolted awake, I could still see it for a split second before it melted into the darkness. From then on, I never felt alone. Every step I took, I felt eyes on me. Every time I turned a corner, I expected something to be waiting. The scratching came back, the whispers grew louder, and sometimes I'd hear my own name being spoken in a low, guttural voice, Daniel. Over and over again, like it was trying to get inside my head. The scariest moment happened about a week later. I was brushing my teeth, staring into the bathroom mirror, when behind me, I saw it. A face. Pale, hollow, with sunken black eyes staring at me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell, but the room was empty. My reflection stared back, but my face was pale, drained of blood. That was the moment I realized this thing wasn't just haunting the house, it was haunting me. I tried calling friends to stay over, but every time someone came, the house was silent, normal, almost welcoming. They thought I was losing my mind. But the second I was alone again, the atmosphere shifted, and the air felt heavy, thick, hard to breathe. One night, the shadow finally spoke. I woke up to the sound of deep breathing right beside my bed. I didn't move. Then, in the lowest, most inhuman voice I have ever heard. It whispered, "Get out." The words weren't just heard, they were felt. My chest vibrated with them. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a duffel bag, shoved whatever I could into it, and left the house that very night. I drove to my brother's place and never looked back. When I told the landlord, he didn't even sound surprised. He just sighed and said, "You lasted longer than most." That one sentence sent a shiver through me that I'll never forget. To this day, I don't know what I lived with in that house. A ghost, a demon, something darker, I have no idea. All I know is, it followed me into my dreams for months after I left. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, certain that if I just turn my head toward the corner of the room, it'll still be standing there, watching me.